Hello, welcome back to my channel about my Infiniti 2019 Infiniti Q50 Q50S Signature Edition. Lot to spit out. I just installed, while I'm making this video, the purpose is to talk about the I've installed the Z1 Motorsports aluminum bushing collar. With those on the car now, I have just not a ton of experience driving it, but I have driven it, and yesterday I drove it a little bit more aggressive. I was just in one of those moods where I just wanted to push the car a little faster, and where I was driving kind of crazy down the highway during this virus. And with that mentioned, I hope everyone's doing okay and staying away from the virus and staying healthy. So a lot of my work is being canceled. I'm again a commercial photographer for the hotel industry, and so a lot of hotels are freaking out. They're losing a lot of business, and people are getting really stressed, and when they get stressed they get grumpy, and it's just not a good scene. So I've had about 3 jobs canceled and close to about $3,000 out of my pocket. So, and I could foreseeably see this being a couple more months of scare and people worried, and it's even my worry that my health is at risk. So with that said, I hope everyone's doing okay. I'm managing. I'm doing okay. So, but back to the car. Z1 Motorsports aluminum bushing collars. Get that right. Yeah, collars. So I got a little illustration that I want to do right here. And again, Cadro Technologies turned me on to these. I knew about subframes and frames, but I just didn't really put it two and two together. Back in the day when we were racing our 87, 88, 89, 90 Mustang GTs and LXs and notchbacks, I remember there were subframe connectors, but and people those were required to be welded on. So that is the extreme side of connecting your subframe to your frame. There's 3 versions from what I understand. You've got what this comes with from the factory, which is your subframe connected with rubber bushings, and then you've got the middle ground where this car, maybe like the BMWs, some of the sportier BMWs, the complete rubber bushing setup is more of a luxurious ride. It's the most comfortable, and so the trade-off between welded subframe, and a solid subframe versus the rubber subframe is having, I guess you could say, the collars in there that limit the movement of the rubber. So the subframe's it has a little bit of movement to try to dampen some sound and close out some of the bumps that But so happy medium. That's where I am now with the collars installed. So the illustration: here's your subframe, here's your car. This is your main part of your car. With your front end up here, when you make a direction with the car in one direction, the rear of the subframe is not necessarily following the front. This is crazy that I guess it works for luxury cars. It kind of boggles my mind how you would attach something kind of with some movement in the back, of how key that is important to have a solid chassis for the car, with the wheels and the suspension and the differential and everything. With the rubber in the back, you've got this piece, and maybe I need to move it up a little closer to the camera. This, the rear subframe that can move around and quite possibly a 360-degree direction, but mostly left and right, and then forward and backwards. Realistically, on a car like this, when you take corners and you turn in and you turn, out of a corner and you're getting on the gas, your rear end is kind of floating underneath you, and that doesn't inspire confidence. And I can confirm that. One situation that I got into when my car was new, when I was getting on the tollway, 635 here in Dallas, and it runs west and east, and it kind of goes underground where a lot of people race their really high horsepower cars. When you see videos made here in Texas, that's where, or Dallas, that's where they go to race, you know, real late at night, because it's really straight, really good concrete, and I guess it's louder down there too. So, you know, everyone likes their car louder, especially when you're 100% throttle with some of these modified cars. But I was getting on down there, and this was right when when I wasn't real sure about this entrance. So I went pretty fast on to the entrance to get down in there, because I knew once I got down there I'd have wide open road. And there was a little bit of an S curve down there at the bottom, and I was overcooking it. And I got into that S turn part of that, just a slight curve, and then my car, I mean, it could have gone either way. Where I thought I was going to lose control of the car. It just didn't feel real planted. I had the vectoring on, you know, so it applies the brakes on the back to, you know, and to help in cornering. No, I actually had that turned off. And so right after that, when I got home, maybe a few days later, I was like, I better turn that back on. It was just kind of a sketchy moment. And I think a lot had to do with it. That was well before I knew that the subframe was connected with rubber bushings. So, I mean, it's just not a win-win situation for anything performance to have the subframe connected with the movement that's going to be, you know, allowed with the rubber bushing. So, I mean, I hope that shows you, you know, I mean, the rear end is actually floating, you know, and then we get to the whole, you know, the suspension, the wheels, you know, and the drivetrain in the rear end. So also too, what's more important to me is not necessarily cornering, but me, I like to, you know, just, if it's even just general performance, you know, me just having fun on the street by myself, you know, nevertheless with someone else, you know, but the rear end of the car, when you're taking off, you know, you hit the gas pedal, your drive shaft, the motor spins, the drive shaft spins, and it comes back to your rear differential. And then your rear differential is, you know, the potential to move forward and backwards or rotate. And so with those bushings, you even get an over-exaggerated, and there's other bushings in there too. The differential bushings, you know, ultimately need to be reinforced too. But you're getting that torque of that rear end, of your rear end, the drivetrain in the back. So when you give it the gas and you rotate it and it spins the differential has a slight delay as it moves forward or backwards. And then, and I'll demonstrate that here, hopefully with something that I kind of thought might be a good demonstration. I mean, it made sense to me, so it may make sense to you or it may not. So, so that's where you're getting wheel hop when the differential, you know, I wish I had something to illustrate better. I'm just gonna have my finger as the drive shaft going to the rear differential. As the differential loads up, as it moves, as you're applying torque, it's zapping some of that torque. It's I mean, the best way to say it's taking some of that torque and turning that into that movement, and then it loads up, and then it releases it, and so you're getting that wheel hop when the tires go and it shakes your interior of your car and your transmission, and it can shake your suspension components. I mean, it can get to where it's bad enough where you can damage stuff, and you can really damage the rear end. For people that have a lot more higher horsepower and more rubber on the road at the track, like on a track surface, that's when you'll see, you know, the drivetrain snap and break and the components fail. Not necessarily in a 400 or 500 horsepower car, but as you're getting that differential's loading up and then releasing, loading up and releasing, loading up and releasing, then the suspension starts to hop. So the best way that I can say, well, let me not get ahead of that. We'll do that here in just a second. I can tell a big difference from driving. That's the whole point of this video, is that I was driving yesterday and it felt really connected. and what Cadro in his video talks about too, which I immediately, I was like, I gotta get those, is when you step on the gas and then there's a slight delay because the rear differential is making some movement before you get the power to the ground. And so there was definitely a better connection between my foot and the rear end and the tires getting traction on the ground. And that's huge. I mean, that's a big deal. And so that's basically why I got this is for that. So it's definitely your foot feels more connected to the differential, and then there's not much of a delay from the differential to the tires, and then applying that power to the ground, because you're not getting that traction, loss of traction, traction, loss of traction, traction, loss of traction, traction, loss of traction, that wheel hop that the tire can make. And even when I had my 300, when this was just 300 horsepower version before it was tuned, and I'm rear wheel drive, I did a video on good concrete where I nailed it right off the line, and it could, with these Pirelli P0 tires. So I'm thinking it's with the Pirelli P0 tires. It could have been the stock crappy run flat tires that I have right here that you can't see, but it left traction marks. It left not a solid strip of rubber. It left patches of brief segments of burnout, and it wasn't really burnout. I mean, it was just where it was gaining traction, losing traction, gaining traction. And so that was the 300 horsepower version. But because it was 300 horsepower, it wasn't that noticeable. So, but yeah, I like it, and so I really recommend to most people that are gonna push these cars, want the most performance out of it, to go get these and put them on. That the installation is a little scary, but hopefully my video, the one previous to this, you can see step by step how to do it, and it's just, it's not terrible. I mean, there's nothing that can go wrong catastrophic unless your jack breaks and you don't have your bolts in, and the subframe just drops to the ground. That would be I think that would be considered catastrophic, but that's likely not going to happen. You'd have to be really dumb and have something really go wrong. So yeah, I highly recommend these. And you can, Cadro Technologies video is another resource. I mean, other than that, I think these are the only two for the Q50 platform. There are some 370, 350Z, but I mean, it's not the same as this car. So I've tried to go into detail to help people to see exactly what you need to do, and hopefully people find this helpful. And yeah, I highly recommend it for everybody. Not mom driving the kids to soccer practice, or the executive just driving these to the airport, or just for work, but for the people 20s to 60s that are gear-headed minded and want to push this car a little bit more than your standard family would. So I think this is very beneficial. So what else can I say? Make sure I got everything covered. Yeah, this is a great car for anyone that tunes into this video just looking for 3.0T. This is the turbo model. If you're looking for just content, like you're looking to buy one of these, the financing and the leasing options are just totally amazing, and there's nothing wrong with leasing this vehicle. People who buy these or get a bank loan and finance these don't own their vehicle any more than someone that leases these vehicles. The thing is, you're not at the end when you pay this off, you're not stuck with this vehicle. So, and it's typically a shorter time. So in 3 years, 2 years, or 3 years, whatever lease you sign, then you have a choice to walk away and then jump right into the newest model. So you always have the availability to be driving the newest model instead of being upside down on a finance, and if you didn't put a lot of cash down. So I could talk about this for a long time, but there's a lot of advantages to leasing, and it's not something that should be frowned upon. So that's really good options. you know, in the $400 range for a $45,000 car, you know, maybe $440 for $450 for a $50,000 red sport. Some really good stuff going on. So yeah, I love this car and I really enjoy it, and I'm very thankful to have it, very blessed. So with that said, if you like this video and you found it helpful, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always want to be helpful. All right, here's my illustration of the rubber bushings in the subframe absorbing some of the initial torque from the drive shaft, you know, the motor to the drive shaft, and then putting that to the rear wheels. You get this flexing of the drive shaft, and as it wants to turn and move in the rubber bushings there in the subframe. So initially, when you stomp on the throttle from off the line, I mean, there's a moment where the drive shaft is loading up, and so the best way that I kind of saw when just working on my car, when you don't have the emergency brake on or you know, chopped wheels, the car and transmission is in park, which will give some resistance as you get to the point where, you know, you can't spin the wheels, but there's a little bit of play in there. So, you know, for example, when you're rotating the wheel nut, I don't really want to take my wheel nut off, but as they're torqued down, but as you go to apply your power to take the wheel nut off, the car wants to move back. As you can see, I've got, you know, about 100 pounds there. As I move to unload that, to break that wheel nut off, the car rotates. So that's just like the transmission to the drive shaft, and then applying that quick power off the line to the differential, which is wanting to twist that differential. And then so that all that is just flex in the system there. And that's not what you want. I mean, you want it hard mounted. So as soon as the movement goes, the rear wheels are going to spin, and then you're not getting that loading up. As I'm applying my torque, I'm applying torque to this wheel nut, and it's not. I would have to apply more torque and get to that point after where then I will break the nut loose. But right now, you know, this is what's going to cause, you know, in a sense, kind of in the same sense, is that wheel hop, the loading up and then the traction, and the loading up the traction. So I think that's kind of maybe helpful. Maybe it might be helpful for some to make sure I didn't break that off too much. But yeah, so I think that's kind of an analogy or an example that works for my mind or my brain. So take that for what it is, and there you go.